Welcome to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss With Us. Darcy, across the way on the ones and twos. How we doing?
Good. I refuse to say that we're tired because we say that every week. So I'm just not
We
even
are
going to say
always
it.
tired. It's still factual.
Yes, it is. But no, good. Stressful week. Kids were
A
sick.
little bit.
Yeah.
All of us are sick. Well, you're seemingly okay.
Yeah.
as
So
usual.
far, so good.
I don't know what we're sick with. Not running fevers, but
Yeah. But so I had that going on and then had my cousin's wedding.
Yes.
Shout out to the Chapmans.
yeah, what was their hashtag?
I'm not sure. Is that still a thing?
I don't know. Maybe that
It may not be a thing anymore.
We're too old, I guess. Yes, it's been an interesting week. We had 3 kids plus me. That's like 2 extra kids. So like 5 kids down and out, up and down all week. A lot of rain, trees coming down, trees getting cut up, weddings. But we are still here powering through, and I have to get this done before the Mucinex wears off for sure.
Gross.
Yeah. Well, I had to, I don't like pills, and I had to take something. Otherwise, there's no way I would make it through 10 minutes of podcasting without it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you did.
First off, still want to give a special thank you to Brent and Jared for their great interviews on the last episode. That was super fun. We definitely enjoyed it. I hope all you guys did too.
Yeah, and it's also reinvigorated us to have some more guests. So we're going to be planning that in the future for y'all.
Yeah, guests really help, I think widen the range of topics we can do and, hopefully even widen our range of listeners, which if you are a new listener, please like or follow the podcast. You can also find our Instagram at discuss_with us. Give us a like,
Look at you
follow.
doing a social media plug here.
Never thought that was going to happen, huh?
No.
On my A game with the Mucinex, I'm telling you. But the reason I was going to say that is if you follow us on Instagram, we are always open for a DM if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about. Because while I think we still have plenty of rounds in the chamber, we will run out eventually. So ideas are always welcome.
And it's just what gets our juices flowing on, that would be. And we start talking about it. And like we say, whatever we're talking about in the house is what's going to
and positive feedback always helps, right? It's like, okay, hey, people liked that. All right.
Positive feedback is what has us up here in our pajamas right now finishing this podcast. So, yeah.
And
always
we're going to
it.
be in a positive mindset as we tackle this topic that should be pretty fun. We're going to talk about church on Sundays.
The importance of church. I feel like this topic has the potential to be touchy or like somebody be like, oh, I don't know if I can listen to that one.
First off, this is not fire and brimstone.
No, I was going to preface it by saying we missed church this morning.
Exactly. I really thought that was going to help our mindset of doing this one is, whoops, bad on us. We missed church.
No, I know it is kind of humbling, but no, like we said, we had our boys were sick this week and Dylan just is not past it all yet. Not.
No.
Yeah. Just didn't want to put him in that scenario or put others near and have them judging his little runny nose.
Yeah, we can be judged in church for many things. We weren't going to be judged for the runny noses today. That was for sure.
Yes. But we will miss it. We did miss it.
Yes.
And we'll stream it and get back to it. So, I want to look at this from a couple different angles.
Okay.
So one, where does this kind of, I don't know if this is the right term, but like dissociation from the church or why do we need to go to church? Where does it come from?
Right.
And then the other angle that we'll get to is, what is the purpose of church?
Mm,
So we'll dive right in, and I'll start off by saying, why do we need to go to church? And let me define need.
okay.
Jesus is what saves us. Church is not what saves us,
Agreed.
right?
I think
So
all of us out there will agree on that.
yeah, and thank goodness, right? Because otherwise
We're
we'd
off
have
to
had
a
runny
bad start.
noses. We'd have had runny noses in church this morning if that was something we
A
had to,
requirement.
yeah, requirement to enter heaven, obviously. So church doesn't save us. Jesus does. Cross, resurrection changed everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I do still feel, and spoiler alert on where Brian and I stand on this, we feel pretty strongly that it's good and important to go to church.
Yes. And just another sidebar before we really go any farther. We're obviously two Catholics. And for anyone
Yes.
Catholic out there listening, this is more because there's two parts of the Catholic Mass. We're not even talking about going to church for the Eucharist. Honestly,
Right.
we're talking about,
That's kind of a whole nother topic for another day.
we're just talking just church in general.
Yeah, just making it through the doors of the church.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, kind of to set the scene there,
Mm-hmm.
I think that gives some good background for um, this conversation. So, um, I think the first thoughts that I've had about this, unless you want to start it off, I don't know.
Put me on the spot there.
Okay. Y'all can see how well we show prep these
Mm-hmm.
days. But anyway, so I guess let's start with kind of the arguments or reasonings that people bring up.
Okay.
And I've done this before too. I've definitely been in phases of life where these have been some of my,
Yes.
I'm using air quotes here, excuses.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah. Um, you know, we are part of the reason that we're here, really the reason that we're here, is to be in relationship and union with Jesus, right?
Yes.
Personal relationship with Jesus. And so I think a lot of it starts with, you hear people say like, I'm good with God.
Mm-hmm.
He and I talk, we're good.
Yes.
Um, or I've heard people say, and this is true, I'm not saying this is untrue, but I find God when I'm insert whatever
Yeah.
they're doing.
XYZ, wherever.
Yeah, on long walks or watching the sunrise and all
Mm-hmm.
these things.
And
So
that's good. You should do
yes,
that too.
yes, it is. And so I think,
But is that a substitute for church?
yeah, obviously I don't think so. So, but just I guess we need to unpack this because we're laying a lot out there.
All
There's
right.
just all these excuses to, well, I'll get back to that in a. It's life is so busy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday's the only day I get to sleep in,
Right.
or things like that. I don't know. You throw some out there that you
No.
hear.
Yeah, I've been there myself on
Mm-hmm.
your. It's widely documented on the past episodes when we did Where Does God Rank in Your Life? And if I was playing a
Right.
gig late on Saturday, get home really late, well, I can't wake up again the next morning to go to church. So,
Yeah.
any type of excuse I could find, or something comes up where you want to go. I like playing golf. The
Mm-hmm.
best tee times are in the morning on Sunday, and um, maybe you think they're back on the back nine where you can find it, and I've been there too. I've done it. I've
Yeah.
used that. So many excuses, but I don't think I think there's just we can say those things, and we've both done it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think there's a little you're missing the special seasoning by
Yeah.
just stopping there. I think all those things are important. You can do
Yes.
those during the week on a different day. Meditation, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
prayer is good. So that's kind of where you're at in nature or wherever you want to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah. But one of the thoughts that I had in that is, and this is the reason that I wanted to talk about this, is because whenever I hear those things, and
It's very 2024 to say, I feel
yes,
like.
yeah, that's true too. Um, but whenever I hear somebody say things like that, I want so badly to impart on them how I feel about church and what it does.
Hmm.
But I'll be honest, it can be hard to articulate well, I think,
Yeah.
without sounding judgy or preachy or like,
Yeah, we'll
we
see how
just,
well we do it.
yeah, I don't know. But without sounding like, well, we have it all together and we make it every Sunday, because that's not true either.
Yeah.
So it's hard to um, impart how I feel about church and what it does when these conversations come up. And it's part of the reason that I wanted to discuss it today, to make myself dig into um, how I feel about it
Hmm.
and be able to articulate it better when I'm in these situations and talking with people that maybe aren't on the same path right now.
Hmm.
Um, and so one of the things that I think I'm fleshing out a little bit is, um, we talk about belief in Jesus and like we just said, Jesus dying on the cross and our belief and acceptance of that gift is what I hate phrasing it like this, but like gets us to heaven,
Yeah, right.
That's what saves us.
You're right.
Um, but I think there's belief in Jesus and God, as in, yes, I believe they exist. And then there's transformational belief,
Okay.
because, you know, Satan believes in Jesus.
Yeah. Well documented.
Um, and so our belief, that's kind of one of my first main thoughts is that our belief in Jesus should be transformational.
Okay.
And um, it should transform our lives in a way that we are just trying to get closer and closer in our relationship with Jesus.
Hmm.
And that's not, I'm not saying that there's like, once we understand and believe in Jesus and what he did for us on the cross, that we should just always, or that we will always have this fire burning in us,
Yeah.
all the time, 24/7, for
Good
I
luck.
need more Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, as just our nature as humans, that's not really possible. And then
Right.
also the way our lives are set up, which makes me think of, have you heard that, the Kevin Hart, the way my bank account's set up, when he's talking about
Yeah.
excuses for, so the way our lives are set up, um, just doesn't necessarily lend itself to just
Right or wrong.
yeah, no, I'm, like I said, it would be wonderful if it did, but that's difficult.
Hmm.
And so I'm not saying that, by saying transformational belief, don't feel bad if you aren't on fire for God 24/7. I, we should all strive for that.
Yes.
um, but just by our human nature, it's not reality.
Hmm.
However, that's what we should be working on. We should be trying to deepen our relationship with Jesus. So we can't stop at like, yes, I believe in Jesus, and yeah, I believe he died on the cross. If it's just in kind of a almost a like dismissive way that we can just go through that, I think that we're missing the transformation that we should be feeling, the repentance that, we should be rooting the sin out of our lives.
Man, you're going straight to like the deep ones. You didn't even
I'm
start with
sorry.
the easy, low hanging fruit. I'm glad you left that for me.
Um, but I guess also what I'm getting at is like, we can't do that on our own.
No, that's very true.
We can't root the sin out of our lives on our own.
Well, even if you can, what's the point? That's kind of the opposite of what Jesus, I feel like, was trying to tell us the whole time, and the
Yeah.
Bible in general.
Yeah. But I think we're lying to ourselves if we think we're going to be able to root it all out ourselves and not hide something from him. I think we do that all the time,
Yeah, no,
too.
I mean that's kind of like some Garden of Eden stuff there,
Right.
trying to take everything into your own hands.
Yes, and that's what so what you just said, take everything into our own hands. Um I think that I think that's the danger of
Boom, I got it.
you did, see? Um I think that's the danger of us feeling like we don't need to go to church is that is kind of us saying like,
Ah,
ah,
yeah.
I got this.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. I'll read my Bible. I will
I felt
pray
like
to
that.
God. Yeah, and it's not to say that we can't do those things and strengthen our faith,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that we are missing it. We're missing something if we're thinking, we will fall on our face at
I think
some
it's an
point, right?
important point to look at and dissect is what is stopping you from going to church, because that can be a loaded
Yeah,
question of what's influencing you. Like
yeah,
just give it some thought,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, when we're taking it into our own hands, I don't think that's got what God intends for us. When we're, I don't know, just taking our faith purely into our own
No, we're supposed to
hands.
lay it at his feet, not take it into our own
Exactly.
hands.
Exactly. Um, and there's so much opportunity for, conviction in when we go to church, which, you know, what a negative connotated word, conviction. Nobody wants to feel convicted necessarily, but that's also like our comfortability is not what we're called to either.
Mm-hmm.
We're called to be transformed, and come into reunion with God, which means, like I've said, rooting out the sin in our lives, and that's not comfortable. Um, you know, I, we talk we've talked a lot recently, like even just our last episode, talking about the peace that we have available to us if we will accept it when we're close with Jesus and we're
Mm-hmm.
in His will. And that is something that's so wonderful, and the joy that we can have in Jesus, yes. But the other side of it, I think, is that as Christians, we aren't always going to be comfortable. We aren't always going to, I don't know, be able to, like, the narrow path is narrow for a reason. It's not always going to
Right.
be fun, you know?
It's not always the interstate.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think that going to church is a way of, like you said, I like that, laying it at his feet and
Mm-hmm.
letting him tell us where he would have us be, what he would have us give up, or, and I'm saying these things as like, like I said, it sounds negative, but also like where does he want to heal us?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where does he want to make us whole? So it's not all negative, help me out here.
Just letting you just go.
I'm
Just do
just
it.
rambling. Um, but anyways, I think that going to church is a good piece of our faith formation.
Agreed.
That and not just something that's it is heaven ordained. Like, it's God set up the church. Like he
Yes.
um there's I think some of the excuses come when we read some of the stories of the Bible where maybe the Sabbath wasn't, honored, quote unquote, honored by Jesus when he healed
Yes.
the man, or the Sadducees versus Pharisees, and
Mm-hmm.
how religion can get a bad rap for almost like shielding us from what we should be focused on in our
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Jesus. Um, but we can't also forget that uh, the church is Jesus's bride, who he
Yes.
cares for and protects and provides for and sustains. So there's that side of it too.
No, and I think that you kind of just said it right there. Kind of where, like I said, the low hanging fruit where my head went with this was that's a commandment: keep holy the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Um, You took it a lot deeper than I went right there. But
Yeah, I've been treading water in the deep end here since we dove off.
you
So
jumped off into the deep. I was going to wade in from the shallows, but here we are. But no, keep holy the Sabbath. Now, I would say, and there's definitely an argument to be made. It's Old Testament, but it's one of the 10 Commandments. And I think it can get confusing when Jesus does come in the New Testament,
upends the tables.
Yes. And he does perform miracles on Sundays. I think that was obviously for a different point.
Yeah.
But you can still make the argument there. But if we're gonna dissect the commandments in that way, then where do we stop?
Yeah.
And that's where I go back to my point of, if that's bothering you, and if going to church is bothering you, what's the root cause of bothering you from church? Because I think a lot of times we're finding an excuse, whether it's I don't like the preacher or the message or the music or the congregation. I mean, we've heard all kinds of things. I've been one that's had different disagreements and stuff like that. So I think the first thing is to kind of figure out what your root cause is.
Yes.
And then approaching it from that angle, because I think then you can be still missing the whole point of it. Then I think also when I look at like keeping holy the Sabbath and what that looks like, I think we take different lenses on that. Can you work at all? Do you go to church all day? Different religions and denominations treat it differently. Not to go way off on a sidebar, but I had a priest one time who said, if you're shopping or going to the grocery store doing anything on Sunday, are you truly keeping holy the Sabbath because you're having other people work?
Yeah.
If the theory is like if every Christian banded together, nobody went to the grocery store on Sunday, even though those stores are open, they might change their mind, because it's really only been, I think, maybe the last 40 or 50 years that anything was open on Sunday. Like now it's odd Chick-fil-A's not, right? But it wasn't that long ago that nothing was open on Sunday. And look, you and I, our routine is to go to the grocery store after church. A lot of people go to lunch after church. This isn't a you're doing it wrong if you're doing that. We do that every Sunday.
It's the world
but
we live
you and
in.
I have had the conversation, and maybe on a different episode of what your entire day of keeping the Sabbath holy is. But just strictly, I find it hard and this is what I mean, like, you got to know your own heart, but are you making excuses to not go to church and then saying you're going to do something else? And I think it's still to your point of taking it in your own hands. I'm keeping the Sabbath holy because I'm doing my yard, and that's it's around my home, my family. Like, I think those are important things to do. I catch myself, and we go to church on Sundays, and if we get caught up, well documented, we got a lot of stuff on the property, and I still struggle with, am I putting my headphones on when we get home and just see y'all later? I'll come back at supper time and, not spending any time. And I actually thought about that today. Good for me, because we had the podcast tonight. So, that was kind of why I was like, I'm not going to focus on, A, we didn't go to church. B, I'm not going to focus on so much work and everything. I'm going to focus on trying to spend time with the kids. I think all those things come into play with what God was looking for on the Sabbath. But I think church, although we missed it today, it's the best way to start that, kind of center yourself. And I've always been a huge proponent on this. I did not go to church for most of my college years. And because of that, and the length of time that I did not attend, I can fully speak on, God's perfect and everything is done in a perfect reason. And I'm a firm believer that every 7 days going to church, and with Catholic Church receiving the Eucharist, it really just gives me a boost that, look, we missed today.
Recharges your
we
batteries.
missed today, and I'm gonna be
Run
dragging
down.
into the next week, and I can speak on it because I've felt it without it, and I've also felt how, yes, the Eucharist, but also just the church, and that, because what the church leads me to the second point is, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yes.
And I think that sense of community, if you went to a service and you've heard the message before, or you couldn't understand, or you got a bad seat, you're still in that sense of community.
Yes.
And I think as a callback to, I really liked the way you put it during our reconciliation episode of everyone standing and we're all kind of banding together.
Yeah. Being on the front lines with,
We're all
Christians.
there for the same purpose. We're all there looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really invigorating. And just for my own personal story of, you never know how you're affecting people and just how different vantage points of your life can affect you. When I was a kid, I would, you have cool kid role models or whatever, right?
Yes.
And I specifically remember if, so-and-so cool kid was still going to church, well, all of a sudden that made church cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I can go to, it's not lame or anything for me to go to church because they're all going to church too,
Yeah,
right?
you never know the impact you're having on
No, and that was
somebody.
going to be my point is, we've had people come up to us and say like, oh man, y'all have 3 kids and, you're still going to church and we just think that's so cool. And yes, so, we're not doing anything. I'm in the back, usually walking one kid in and out. I hardly get to hear anything, but just the fact that we're showing up, I think has impacted some people. And that's great. Those are things that you don't ever even think about. And so it made me start thinking like, wow, I did used to look at who was coming to church when I was a kid. And that did positively affect me. And even now with us with kids, when I see, it's like that camaraderie, right? We see someone else with kids our own age or anything like that, or even parents that have kids that are older that were right there on the front lines with you not so long ago. It's like you've got that even second layer of brothers in arms on like, we're going to figure this out and we're going to do it. And I also now, as I'm middle-aged, I'm realizing I'm about to use that term for the first time. I'll look at an older couple, and now that's the goal, right? And I guess it was the whole time, but now it just seems so much more important of like, man, you to still be able to go to church and still have that fire in you, like that's the dream. That's where I want to be. So it's like every stage of your life you can be impacting someone, because people still impact me going to church.
Yes.
And this will probably come up on like a summertime vacation topic more in depth, but my last point that's always really gotten me, my parents were always very big on going to church. And when we did our camping episode, I talked about like we didn't go on all these long-term trips or stuff like that. But when we were out of town, it was not even a question of you still went to church on Sunday. And man, that used to like be annoying, or, as a kid, or even wanting to play like travel ball and stuff like that. My parents were actually against it because a lot of the games were on Sunday. Well, now, fast forward, if I see, and we see it from time to time, I think Brenham has tournaments and stuff like that pretty frequently. When I see people come in and their kids are in their uniforms and they're still getting up and going to church, that like really just lights a fire in me of like, man, that's so cool that, I don't know.
They made it a priority.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what it is too, is you talked about like, look at what your root cause is. And we talked about this on our Lent episode about where does God rank in your life.
It's all intertwined.
It is. We're calling back all these episodes. It's funny. But yeah, it's like, where does God rank in your life? And how are you prioritizing? There are, going back to, a lot of people have a lot of success in building their relationship, and you should have a lot of success in building your relationship with God throughout the week too.
Yes.
It's not just a Sunday thing by any means. I mean, I think that quiet time in the mornings or before bed, anytime throughout the day,
Listening
not
to a podcast.
listening to a podcast. We talked about like dedicating, your mundane chores to him. There's all these ways that we can kind of unite with Christ and grow our relationship with him all throughout the week. But I think that that's also more focused on building our relationship, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas church is also, this kind of brings me to my second point about what is the purpose of church. And it's like you said this, it's like, say that you're finding God, somebody saying they find God, or they feel closest to God when they are out in nature. But what are you out in nature for primarily? You're usually doing something else. You're not.
It's not front and center. It's not the focal point.
It's not front and center, right? So Sunday is an opportunity for it to be front and center.
Even an hour.
Yes, just an hour. So, anyways, but I guess, can I move on to my second point?
I didn't know you had more than one. Let's go.
Well, yeah, I said it, didn't I? I don't know. Maybe I didn't. So what is the purpose of church?
Okay.
And obviously we just talked about, building our relationship with God and praise and worship and repentance. And you can name all these things that I'm not even saying are untrue by any stretch. But as I was thinking about this with the recent conversation that I've had, the purpose of church, and we can get, I think as humans, we can get in such a headspace of like, what is this doing for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of our excuses come from, where we're like,
Yeah.
well, the donuts weren't delivered on time, or, somebody sat in my spot,
I've heard someone say the music wasn't what they wanted to hear.
Yeah. Or, and all of these are not like completely invalid either.
No.
I mean, it's important to I don't know. Those things are all important too.
Yes.
But I think we can so easily miss the point of church when we're looking for what we're getting out of it. And the fact is, we do typically get something out of church, right? So it's not completely invalid. But I think, and maybe I'm wrong for this.
We could be.
We could be totally off. Here. But I think that the point, the purpose of church is ultimately to glorify God. Whether we get something out of the sermon that week.
Well, you can think of it as like the whole unanswered prayers thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're putting in to church, and everyone always wants like, I want a direct response to it. But, the whole thing with God's timing is perfect timing. Like maybe because I don't get things out of church a lot right now in this particular season
to hear
of our life, right?
Yeah, with the kids.
So we're putting in a lot just by getting the family there, which, look at it this way. If nothing else, hopefully we're building a strong foundation for all three of the boys, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's all it is right now. Maybe we'll find the answer out in 5 years, 5 months, 50 years. I don't know. But it might not be that direct response you want. That as humans, you just want a direct link.
Yeah, you're looking for what you're getting out of it. And it's like what Deacon said not too long ago, where I think it was the penance service Palm Sunday, where he said, what was it when you get something out of church?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are the two most attended Sundays.
Palm Sunday and what? What was the other one?
Ash Wednesday.
Oh, Ash Wednesday. That's right. Okay. Ash Wednesday and Palm Sunday. It's most attended because you get to leave with something. And so we're always just looking for what we're getting out of church. And not to say, like I said, it is important to be able to get something out of church too. But I think more so than that, and again, this is just my opinion, but I think church is there. The purpose of going to church is to glorify God.
Yes.
In just sheer showing up.
In public, it's his house.
In public, in his house, choosing to, clearly you've prioritized your day around this first. And I think that glorifies God. Um, and whether we get something tangible out of it that day or not, um, I like what you're saying about like we're putting in. You will eventually get something out, like.
Yeah.
um, but anyways, I think that, and I think the more of that headspace that we can be in, the more we probably will get out.
I agree there too.
Yeah, because you know, not so long ago, I told the the story of the lady who was like, "Your kids are loud."
Oh, yeah.
Do I think she was in the headspace of glorifying God with being in church? Probably not. So I do think the more of that headspace that we can be in, where we're going because this glorifies God, and we're doing it for Him, I think the more open our hearts will be to hear and receive and get out of church what He would have us get.
Which also tying in with that, if we are going, I think it
Mm-hmm.
is an important reminder to then also be open
Yes.
to anyone that you also see.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tying to your kids of being loud things, but all of us get caught up in you know if like your mom's the best at this, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If she sees someone new at church, she
Yes.
beelines to them, and I hope they're extroverted because they are about to get a big dose of her coming right up, right?
Yes. Big
Um,
smile.
yes, but
Welcome.
that's, we can kid about it, but she makes sure and makes a point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that's new, she wants them to feel open, invited, and welcome.
Yes.
And me as the introvert, like that's not my MO, but
Mm-hmm.
I do now that I'm in the back of the church all the time. Um, I try to keep a mind of that because you never know if this is someone's first time walking in or 1st
Mm-hmm.
time walking in a while.
Yeah.
And it'll lead me to my last little fun thing of the impactfulness is vacations. I was kind of right there. When we went to Maui and we went to church on Sunday,
Yeah.
one of the coolest things was how many, it was like probably half the church was
Mm-hmm.
like vacationers, right? You're on
Yes.
an island. And how many people took time out of their day on this
Mm-hmm.
tropical island to go to church? And it was kind of different service, Hawaii versus Texas. But
Yes.
I think the priest was traveling to Austin
Yes.
after there. He was
You're
going on
right.
vacation to Austin. And so we got a chance to talk with them and talk with other people that, everyone's on vacation. Hey, where are you from? And that really helped build that sense of community. And it's just stuck with me even the last like 5 years or however long ago that
Mm-hmm.
was. And so I just think you never know when someone might be visiting or, like I said, maybe has never come to your church before.
Right.
And sometimes we're real good at greeting people when they walk in, but then, as soon as the door's shut and stuff, and you better know what we're Catholic too. It's like, oh, you can totally don't know what they're doing right here now, right?
Yeah.
So my point is just we're talking about making sure you're in the right headspace for church, but also be in the right headspace because I do think one of the most important things of church is you never know how you're impacting people. And this goes for life. I
Mm-hmm.
try to be, for whatever reason, that's one of the things I've always been able to take to heart really well.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be super nice if I'm at a service station or something like
Yeah.
that. You never know when you might brighten someone's day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take that even up a notch if you're at church.
Mm-hmm.
Go shake hands with someone else or ask someone how they're doing or just try to be welcoming with a smile or something.
Smile at the mother who's trying to wrangle her kids.
Yeah, or the dad in the back of the church who's just kind of aimlessly walking around.
Yeah. One of my only other thoughts on this, as I don't know.
More thoughts.
Yeah, I've got lots of thoughts. I don't know that any of them are organized or make much sense, but I've got them. One of my other thoughts that I had while thinking about prepping for this topic was just thinking about from God's perspective
Ooh, yeah.
what church is for Him.
Okay.
And so, as I was thinking about that, I thought about the scripture that says, God's the shepherd that, even when He's got all His flock if he's missing one, he's going to
Leaves
go
the
after.
99 for one.
Yes, he's going to go after that one. And so how if you've been lost, if you've been out there and you haven't been to church in a while, or you just haven't been, consistently going,
Mm-hmm.
how much God must celebrate your coming to church.
Yeah.
And then when I started down that trail of thought,
Here we go. The
I
good
know.
stuff.
The other thing that I was thinking was we've had the conversation recently about because going on vacation with all of our boys, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously they're super young, so they have
Yep.
no choice, they come with us, and just relishing in that
Mm-hmm.
they're all with us, we're all enjoying it together. Because we've even recently thought, like, I've had siblings that haven't been able to make a certain trip, or we've been the
Yeah.
ones that haven't been able to make a certain trip with
Yep.
my family.
Of course.
And it's not like my parents don't enjoy the trip if we're not all three there, but
It's like
I
the old adage, you're only as happy as your least happy kid. Like you're only happy when all kids
yeah
are together.
yeah, and
Happiest, I should
yes,
say.
happiest, yeah. So, yeah, there's always, if somebody's missing, if one of your kids is missing, there's just something in you that's also missing. Not saying you don't enjoy the other
Mm-hmm.
ones that are there, but, and so we were talking about that, how we're like, oh, yeah, now as parents
You get it.
of multiples, I can totally get that.
Yeah.
Where, if June and Clyde are with us, but Dylan's still in college or something and has an
It's just going to
exam,
feel different.
it is just going to feel different without him there. Not that we won't enjoy June and Clyde, but
All
we'll
parents
miss.
yearn for all.
Yes,
You want all,
yes.
that's where the whole thing, like getting all under the same roof for a
Yes.
holiday or whatever. Like
Yes,
now you get to see the importance of that. And
exactly. And so then thinking about that in reference to church, we're all God's children.
yeah, I like that.
And he yearns for all of us to be there. And so to this point of glorifying God and our presence, our coming to church and being alongside our other brothers and sisters in Christ. What a happy day for him.
Yeah.
When we all make that effort.
I like that. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, sorry, but
Like
I
that.
keep some things from you.
Yeah. Hey, man, your PJ talk's full of wisdom.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's the late night tonight. I apologize for the rambling. Just in my feels over here.
Yeah, I got you.
But I hope that none of this is to make anybody feel super convicted or like uncomfortable if you haven't been going, or if you miss more often than you like.
Mm-hmm.
It's
We're all in different seasons. We're all in
yes,
different stages and areas.
and yeah, let's remind, we didn't go this morning because of sick kids, so it definitely happens.
Unplanned. We didn't do that for this episode.
Yeah, I know. And thank God that Jesus is our way to heaven, and not all of these other, again, air quotes, religious things
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing on earth, that all are good. And that's a whole nother episode in itself, is
Yeah,
talking
for
about,
sure.
the kind of the bad rap that I think religion gets these days, that I also don't agree with. But, thank goodness that it is just Jesus is all we need. But I hope that our talk today on the importance of church has maybe encouraged you to come to church just in an effort to glorify God. Just start there.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a good reminder for everyone. Church is not meant to be scary. It's not meant to be
No.
fire and brimstone. And there's also nothing wrong if you've attended a church in the past that you just weren't happy with. There's all kinds of different options out there
Yeah.
for you. Um,
And then, like you're saying, like you said, a reminder to all of us too, if we are in church and we see new people, that, just to have that open heart towards them, and approach them like Ginger would, and
Well,
shake their hand and give them a good
be
smile.
like Ginger.
Be like Ginger.
No, I think it is kind of to that penance episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just always remember, we're all here for the same thing.
Yeah.
If you are in church, keep that in mind for anyone else you may see. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have any inhibitions not making you want to go to church, we're all there for the same thing. We're all
Yeah.
sinners. We're all just trying to glorify God.
Stumbling our way.
Yeah, just trying to find the way on the path.
Yeah. Good thoughts.
So that's going to wrap up this episode. Hope we didn't go too hard on anyone. Don't know.
I was a little in the deep end.
Hey,
I
just
apologize.
remember, we were at a wedding last night. Cut us a little bit of slack. Darcy did the worm on the floor, so
Okay.
Can't go without saying that. But my Mucinex is starting to wear off. I am mouth breathing pretty bad at this point, so we're going to have to cut it off. But next week should be more fun. No more gentle nudges or anything. We're going to talk about the love languages.
Yes.
How many are there? 5?
5 love languages.
Yeah. See, I'm not even good at this, but guys, this will probably be the most important episode that we ever do for you. I can promise that. So
yeah, bring your pen and notepad.
Yes. You will want to star this episode, lock it in, download it forever. And I even just learned a new piece of information. I thought once you had these love languages figured out with your spouse or significant other, you were good. Apparently, they change. I was informed of that last night. So I don't know if that was just the wedding talking or if that's real, but we're going to have to dive in because what I thought I had figured out with my significant other across the way on the 1s and 2s is currently changing. So
we reserve the right to morph over time.
This is why you need to lock this episode in, I'm telling you. But anyways, we have unpacked going to church, how important it is, how good it can be for you, how you're impacting other people, and just above all, glorifying God. Now that we have done that, you go discuss.